Hello, long time no see or hear. Hope everybody's well in this weird world of isolation. As for me as a key worker, I'm working from home, which is presenting its own challenges, and obviously being completely isolated, it's difficult to get out and fly. And the reason I thought I'd break my silence, because I've been on a bit of a hiatus from doing videos, albeit I've still been tinkering away as I always do. The reason I thought I'd break silence and do this video is because I've fallen in love with something, and this channel was always about sharing experiences, I suppose, and I just wanted to share this, which is the Diatone Tina Whoop, or Tina Whoop, whatever it's called. And this is my one, and I've ordered the BNF, which comes with Falco X or Flight 1, but this is one I made myself with the frame, which cost me all of 14 quid. Unlike the BNF, also comes with a load of colourful spare ducks. But as you can see, mine has been heavily adapted. So I am running a stripped Hero 7. If I get it out, you can see of its little mount. And as you can see, I've basically decased a GoPro Hero 7. And if you want to know how to do this, or you want to do it with the GoPro Hero 6, which is actually a better candidate because you can use real steady for really cinematic stuff, I'm going to leave the link to, I think it's Rimzler, whose video I copied to do this. So anyway, I've been using mine with the Hero, but I've also added DJI to it. And the way I did that is really simple. I've got this bottom additional TPU piece, but you don't actually need that to do the mod. So if I just take this Hero canopy off, you can quickly see what it is. And the Tina Whoop is basically an 86mm quad using 1.6-inch props. And it is a tiny little thing, but it's probably the smallest little quad you can get away with doing what I'm doing with it, which is essentially running the DJI system as well. So you can see inside I've got a caddx vista, and that basically just sits over the top of the 25 by 25 Diatone Mamba all-in-one board. And I haven't done any modifications to the frame to get this in. All I've done is raise the top plate slightly by about 5mm, and I didn't even need to raise it that much, to be honest with you, more like 2 or 3mm. But that just allows me to comfortably sit the air unit of the Vista inside. And last night, when I was trying to find a camera mount for this, I basically just nicked this from Thingiverse. I can't even remember what frame it was from, but it was basically one of the only M2 camera mounts that I could find. Because on the frame itself, you get a little 3D printed camera mount, which basically just sits sort of flush in this archway. But you can see that the DJI camera is a little bit fractionally too big to get in there, but you can get it in a lot further than I've got with this camera mount. But that's, as I said, it's because it's the only one that I could find. And all I've done to add this is you'll notice that each of these ducts has little sort of screw holes either side. And all I've done is basically just used the longest screw running downwards on both sides, and then just used like a plastic antenna tube to almost create a little standoff just between the two screw points, and that just holds the TPU camera mount in. And I've got to say, even though this one's homemade, it is pretty much the same components by the Vista as the original Tina Whoop. So I'm running the same Mamba 1103 8.5K motors. As I said, I'm using the same Mamba 25 by 25 board. And the reason why I'm using the motors is because they're dirt cheap. These ones were £6.75 a piece from unmannedtech, which is pretty much half the price of the equivalent iFlight. And they're really good motors, smooth as a whistle. My one's running HQ 1.6 inch props, simply because that's what I had in my toolbox. And this little 3D printed bottom piece was again something I pinched off Thingiverse, and it was actually designed so you could use like a runcam split or something like that, basically get an additional board in it. And I've used this just to hold my crossfire receiver and also the 5-volt regulator, which is the connector there, to power the GoPro. So underneath here, in this slot here, there's a little 5-volt regulator, which is just connected directly to VBAT, and it outputs 5 volt, which is sufficient to run this guy. Now, of course, I could have just powered the camera directly from the 5-volt output on the flight controller, but in my testing, some flight controllers didn't have the power to do that. So rather than potentially brown out the camera or fry the 5-volt regulator on the flight controller, I've just added another 1.5 grams, 2 grams to the quad and put a separate regulator in. And as I said, this piece you don't need to use at all. It's not really giving me anything that I wouldn't otherwise have, because I initially put the regulator here and the TBS Crossfire Nano here, and just basically stuck them in place. The only reason I've added this on is because it weighs about 2.7 grams, I think, and the original TPU bit underneath weighs about 0.6 grams. So I've added maybe 2 grams on to do this, but it just allows me to take off that much easier in mud and short grass, rather than trying to take off and getting your props stuck in the grass. So why do I love this little quad so much? And the reason for that is it's hugely versatile. So you can obviously run it in its usual analog format, and in that format you've got a really stable, nice flying quad. It's not as sort of frenetic and easy to fly in small spaces as perhaps a Mobula 6 or something like that, but it's absolutely fine to fly indoors and in your back garden on all those things. It just won't be as quick around a track as a Mobula because it's bigger. But the thing that I love about it is just that it's so versatile, and because it's a pusher, the ducts don't really impact the flight performance, so it flies great. Even in this case, I'm flying pretty much stock Betaflight 4.15 with the JSC 48K firmware on the ESC. And I've got to say, because it flies so nicely, and because you can do so many things with it, and you can carry a hero and all the rest of it, it is, for me, right now in isolation, the best thing ever, because it can do whatever I need to do. Without the hero, it's well capable of acrobatics, inverted stuff. With the caddx stuff, I can happily potter around indoors and do really nice sort of longer range flying than I would do, with a 25 milliwatt Whoop, that sort of thing. And stick the Hero 7 on it, and it's as good doing cinematic FPV as its vastly bigger brothers. like this one. And essentially here we've got the same thing. Both of these quads, the little guy in its format at the moment and this big guy, are designed to do one thing, and that's carry one of these and get good footage. And in the footage that obviously I've shown in this video, you can see I'm in a tiny little park. I'm not annoying anybody because it's not as crazy loud as this. You know, I can also fly from my bedroom down the street to that park. So I've got to say, I'm just absolutely in love with it. So hats off to Diatone. I think you've made an absolutely cracking little frame. It's pretty robust. The ducks have taken a hell of a bashing since I've had mine. I've had one crack somewhere, which can't even see it now, which I just repaired with glue. But of course you get another 4 in the box along with a Hey Tina band. So for the price it is, I would say go out and get one. And as I said, I bought this, or should I say I made this myself, but I've gone ahead and bought the B&F one as well, simply because for the price of it, I think it's well worth the money. So that is the Diatone Hey Tina, and a bit of a waffly video. Just to end this video, I want to say a few things. The one issue with this setup is the Mamba stack only has 2 UARTs, and only one of those UARTs is broken out, which in my case is using Crossfire. So I haven't got DJI OSD because there isn't a second TX and RX free on this particular board. So in an ideal world, Diatone should change this and break out that second UART so we can pick up the DJI system, but of course that was never designed for it. This guy on the other hand is, and this is, I'm going to flash up the name of it because I can't say it, but this is the 20 amp version and a new 25 by 25 board. And I've been through a lot of these 25 by 25 boards. They seem to last 5 minutes. I had a nameless RC one that's lasted about 6 packs, a Beta FPV V3, which is about 60 quid. That lasted all of about 10 packs before its regulator fried. And this has been the best one that I've had. And the beauty of this is it's got 2 proper UARTs, so you can use the full DJI system. And it also comes in a 30 amp version, of which I'm waiting for mine to arrive. And this guy has been running without any issues until I had a bit of an issue, which was I made the silly decision to flash it with JESC and basically pay for the RPM filter option. And there is always a danger when you flash with that experimental firmware that something will go wrong, and in this case it did. Basically, ESC number 3 on this board was corrupted when I flashed the JESC firmware, and I've done everything I possibly can to try and fix it, because basically BL Heli or JESC or whatever you want doesn't recognize ESC3 anymore. So the only way I've got, well, there's nothing wrong with that ESC, it's just corrupted. The only thing I can do now is basically try and flash that ASC using Arduino, but to do that I need to find the C-pads, and because the manufacturer of this board is someone I've never heard of, it's not like I can bob them a quick email and say where are the C-pads. So essentially this rather nice flight controller is toast, and there's nothing at all wrong with it. It's just been corrupted with firmware. So if you want JESC or even what's the other one, Jazz Maverick is it, and you want the, you know, the BL Heli 32 features on a BL Heli S ESC, just be aware that this can happen. And this is the only time it's happened in the dozens of times I've used it. But having done a bit of a Google search and spoken to some other people, it isn't that uncommon, and it can happen with any board. And if it does, you're out of luck unless you can speak to the actual vendor and find out if there are tiny C pads that you can use to flash it via, as I said, via one of those little Arduino boards like they used to do in the bygone eras. Yeah, so that is it. I am thoroughly loving my isolation. Now I've got this guy. Its capabilities are huge. Am I going to fly it with a Hero 7 on it all the time? Of course not. But I've essentially got, even when isolation is over, a perfectly viable cinematic quad for doing cinematic shooting through trees and indoors. And without, I've got a fab little Whoop that I can go anywhere with. And of course the benefit of DJI over analog is essentially walls don't exist. So you can fly around indoors and outdoors without any issues or breakup whatsoever. So you don't need to run it with DJI. My plan when I get my other one is to run probably one analog with this and this one with the DJI caddx, or I keep saying DJI, but it's the caddx Vista, but it's clearly made by DJI. And I'm using one of these little dipole antennas because the difference between this and one of the bigger lollipop style antennas is minimal. So just to save a little bit of weight, that's the way I'm going. So yeah, there you go. Congratulations to Diatone. This little frame is a triumph, and the way everything goes together is perfect. 86mm of absolute joy. Cheers guys, thanks, bye bye.